Are you exercising enough during the pandemic? Do you have any fear of osteoporosis? Or have you already been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia? I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns, and hopefully we inspire you here. And I share what to eat and how to move and how to change your mindset about what to eat and how to move so that you can have the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. My guest today is sharing her story about being diagnosed with osteoporosis in what feels like I'm talking about a long time ago, in late fall of 2019. However, since we've just lost a year, it's all really fairly fresh. And I'll tell you how she and I met, and she'll tell you more about what happened since that diagnosis and where she stands today with her osteoporosis. And you may take some takeaway tips if you're looking for what can you do, and in fact, can you do something even while you're at home? All right, before we dive into this episode, I want to let you know this show is sponsored by the 5-Day Flip. If you are just not sure where to start with your strength training or with planning a week of exercise and what that looks like, or you're in need of restarting, and you know you can't do too much too soon, but you need to know to do enough, the 5-Day Flip is just for you. I incorporate 2 days of strength training and 3 days of active movement, really short and fairly light, not so intense interval training. And you've got a day of even rest and recovery with a little core exercise and plentiful cues and tips so that you can do it all correctly with good form, and you know where you should feel it and where you shouldn't. I'll share the link with you. It's called the 5-Day Flip, and those videos, 5 days in a row, or less than 15 minutes each. Now, let's dive in to this episode. So I am here and have the pleasure of being here with Diane, who is 59 years old. She's married. She's a mother of 2 and Gigi of 1. She is also, though, the owner of a property management company in Phoenix, Arizona, and sits on 2 boards. And one, she's the president of that board. So she's just got a few things going on. And thank you for being here and taking the time, Diane.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'd love to kind of go back in time. So really we're here to celebrate, and I want to share all the good news that you've got, but I'd love to take you back in time to when were you diagnosed with osteoporosis?
Well, I was diagnosed in October of 2019 with osteoporosis.
And so tell me what that's like, because women who are listening may actually have had that moment and maybe not, but fear it. What was it like for you?
For me, it was devastating. Now, I probably should not have been shocked since my mother had it, but I feel that my mother's generation, no offense, didn't really share things possibly to help prevent like I am now with my daughters. In fact, I give my daughters vitamin D in their Christmas stockings now to make sure that they start at a young age, since I have it and my mother had it. So it was devastating. It was something that I was shocked. I was 58 at the time. I felt as though I took care of myself. I wasn't overweight. I exercised what I felt was enough. I felt like I ate right. And boy, did I have a lot to learn.
Okay, so we're going to unpack a little bit of that, but I also want to ask you a little bit more. I mean, was there you were devastated. So say more about that. Were you fearful? And if so, what was it you were afraid of?
Well, I was shocked, I think, and it scared me. I was afraid of I was I felt at 58 I was young to get that diagnosis, and I wanted to be able to pick my grandkids up and, be able to live a life that I didn't have to worry about bones breaking or falling or just the normal day to days. Now, I was lucky because with my diagnosis, I had no symptoms. I didn't even realize that I had anything like osteoporosis. So I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones where something didn't happen in order for me to get that diagnosis. I just had a bone density test and found that out. So I think that's why it was scary. I just didn't know. I guess it was the first time where I've ever had anything where someone told me, "Oh, the only way that you are going to fix this is to take medicine."
Mm. Okay, so that leads me to my next question. And what was it? I mean, when you said, okay, what are my options? What was the answer?
Well, I dug right into it. I mean, I started listening to YouTube videos. I didn't know the first thing. I mean, my daughter is a physical therapist, but I also understand that, she was just starting out. I had something that was for the older generation. And so I just started researching. I got on the computer and I just watched YouTube videos. I Googled osteoporosis. I read things about people that had it and, foods that you're supposed to eat. And I just felt like for a month or two, I was learning, and I was learning that you can help this diagnosis, that sometimes you can get results that are better, but with researching supplements, diet, exercise, and all this information, I just didn't know how to put it all together.
So bring me up to date. So we met at some point. So where was that in your journey?
So I reached out to you, I believe, in January. Was when I finally decided that I had all this information and knew that there were things that I could do, but that I didn't have the knowledge to put it all together. So I was looking online for personal trainers, knowing that that would probably be a route that I should go. And I had remembered over the couple past years that I had followed you on Facebook. And so I reached out to you. And lo and behold, you were no longer in Boulder. You were actually in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I was very thrilled to find that out.
That's right. It was still normal then.
Yes.
It's like a
Yes.
long time ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. And so we started in January, and we actually got to meet once in person at a gym before everything closed up and fell apart.
Mm-hmm. So true. Okay. So you were all through the pandemic then. I mean, basically, we started in January. Had you been doing strength training prior to that?
No, I had not.
Okay.
No.
And then were you using a gym after the pandemic or were you at home?
So I was using a gym probably you and I met in January, and I started to do the strength training and weight bearing exercises with the machines. And I want to say I probably went through March. Maybe, yeah, I think probably it was through March, and then obviously stopped going to the gym.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So talk to us about results. Do you have numbers?
Yes. So my exciting numbers are when I started My spine was at a negative 2.9. When I had my bone density test in January, it is now a negative 2.3, which puts me into osteopenia.
Nice.
My femoral neck was at minus 2.6, just on my left hip side. And that is also now a negative 2.3.
Also improved. Fantastic.
Yes.
So femoral neck, everybody, just in case you're not familiar, that's the hip.
Yes.
So good. Okay. So and I love the fact actually, well I don't love why you had to, but I do love the fact that you made such gains and done it at home for the
Yes.
most part.
Yes.
So listeners, I've been preaching, I would tend to say, since April, that we can't wait. We can't wait until this over when we're looking at, this could be months. And now we know actually we're into years in another few weeks here, that we can't wait, and think I'm going to wait until I get back to the gym and I'm just going to walk at home, or I'm just going to do my yoga and my Pilates and my bar at home. We really need to start, and it pays off if you start. But we also talked about something else. And what else were you doing?
Oh my gosh, so much. The way I look at everything now, I am the first one to tell somebody that I'm eating with if they don't have protein in their meal. So uh, I I learned, just a different way of eating and how important protein is with every meal. That's something that I wasn't paying attention to, did not realize the benefits of that. So I make sure that my meals, my eating habits are so much better. And although I thought they were good, they aren't anything like they are now. I always make sure every day that I love your chocolate paleo
Uh,
powder,
oh,
but
I'm in trouble.
I know, but vanilla will suffice. But uh, I I drink one of those every day. I make sure I get the protein powder, whether it's the chocolate or vanilla, and I do the paleo powder because it's got the bone broth in it. So I've done that. I make sure that I exercise a couple times a day. I do different things. That was the one thing that I had picked up from you was it should not be the same thing day after day after day. You should change things up. And if you recall, we did meet virtually
Mm-hmm.
after the gyms closed. And we went through a session of how I could do things at home with weights versus what I was doing on the machines and getting similar results. So we did do that as well. So you gave me those pointers because I was at home and I wasn't going to the gym. And I probably it was maybe a little bit easier for me to get into a little bit more of a routine because I was working from home. I went from working in the field and working in the office every day to being at home. And so now it has become so ingrained into just my everyday routine that there's at least 2 times a day that I get up, I take a walk, I go do interval training, I lift the weights at home. It's just become a part of my day. And I think in the beginning, I struggled with that because my schedule is so busy that I made a lot of excuses sometimes. And I didn't make it a priority like I should have. And so now that definitely for me has just been a game changer, I believe. And I, added supplements that I'm taking that are good for the bones.
Okay, so let's talk about that. But I'm gonna pause just a second. So I'm gonna guess that listeners might have been surprised by the very first thing that you said. because I think when osteoporosis and bone health comes up, quite often, well, started taking calcium, or I started, taking, and those may be pieces of it, but I think the first thing you led with was protein, and I love that. And for those of you that are still maybe relatively new to hearing me talk about this, it's been about 3.5, 4 years now since the research has really gotten very strongly committed to no longer what was probably 25 years ago when I began talking, all of us began talking about osteoporosis and osteopenia and what was it, how do we help it. In terms of risk factors, having a high protein diet was still listed on the risk factor because there was this belief that it actually robbed the bones of calcium in digesting it and breaking it down. That is no longer true. And they're struggling to find the research that even backed that up when it was said. But the truth now is that a higher protein diet is extremely important and relative to not only bone health for the bone health period, but to the health of the muscles so that your muscles are strong enough to do the kind of exercise without risk of injury so that you can get the bone density. So it's a 2-for-1, and there's a lot of synergy there. So I'm glad that you led with that, and I know it may be a surprise. It's not necessarily the first thing that comes to someone's mind. So go on, help me out. Tell me a little bit more what you did with other supplements.
Well, in the beginning, I started to obviously increase my calcium. Well, let me backtrack. I didn't really take calcium supplements. Again, hindsight and, learning, just not something that was ever at the forefront for me. So I really wasn't taking a calcium supplement. I really wasn't even taking vitamin D. And so I started with those, and I started on some products that that I was taking, but I was also doing some research as well. And I had come across a product, and when you and I met, you had also mentioned that product. So for me, that was a game changer as well. And I believe that the supplements that I'm taking now, which is AlgaeCal,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a game changer for me. And I'm on the community Facebook with AlgaeCal. I see results from people all the time. And mind you, everybody is taking the supplement, but they're also doing lifestyle changes. They're exercising, they're eating. So it's not a magic bullet. I don't believe you could take this supplement and not do everything else. I think it's all combined, and it has to be combined in order for it to work. So I take the AlgaeCal, and they also have an omega-3 fish oil, which is called Triple Power, and I take that as well.
Fantastic. Did you do the strontium when you started?
Not.
Okay.
I did not. I decided I am taking the AlgaeCal Plus, and I just decided to try that first. And I've had good results, obviously. And so I haven't taken the strontium.
Good. And glad you mentioned that. As far as good results, I just want to backtrack to listeners. And it's funny to me when I first started. So again, it was about 1995. It was potentially in the fall of 95, because I remember it was one of the first times I left the house. I left my son with his dad to go teach an adult ed class. And it was like the first time I was leaving my baby, and I wasn't there. Anyway, so it was 1995 when we were really first having this conversation about, okay, this is something women, are more likely to get, and there's something we can do about it. And I was teaching, and I had to educate people. And so, listeners, you may not need this education, but I'm going to just give a brief review in case. So, as we talked about, Diane's numbers were 2.9. And that's a negative 2.9. So that means that, X amount of standard deviations away from where we want to be, 2.9. And she's now at 2.3. And really, in terms of making significant changes, statistically significant changes, that is definitely it. So what we see with, say, 0.1 or 0.2 point drops in the amount of bone density that you have, that is significant. So if we're putting the brakes on and stopping those losses, that is really one level of, that's what you might be doing if you're eating well, you're eating your protein, you're getting your sleep and taking care of yourself, and you're exercising with strength training and with weight-bearing exercise. You might be putting the brakes on and slowing those losses. But on the flip side, what Diane's been able to do is actually add bone density. So she's coming up, she's improving and making a change in that. That is even more significant. So it's more like double. We're not just coming up and stopping what would be 1 to 3 points of loss, but we're actually increasing it. So it's quite dramatic, even though those numbers may sound small in terms of significance and bone density, they're significant. So I want to recap on that for listeners.
Well, and to follow up on that too, I know that it is crucial to go to the same place where they're doing your bone density with the same machine to get your actual true results, which I did. And I'll tell you, I went in there saying, if I can just be even, if I didn't lose anything more, I was going to be happy. So I was ecstatic.
Great.
to get my results.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people I wanted to share it with because I felt like you really helped me with my journey.
Yeah, that's exciting. So, and thank you for letting me be a part of it. You did the heavy lifting, quote unquote, literally, right? So, I mean, we're in this moment still where there are a lot of people who potentially don't want necessarily to get back to the gym. Maybe not quite feeling safe about, where things are and mask, no mask, or vaccine, no vaccine. And we don't have to get into that conversation, but who are listening, who may be choosing to be at home, what would you say to them if they're not being quite as active or wondering if it's even worth it to be active?
Oh, I mean, for me, I guess it would depend upon their reasoning. For me, this was my eye opener to change my life, basically, because I wanted to do something about it so that my quality of life, maybe not necessarily right now because I wasn't feeling anything different, but in 5 years, if I didn't do anything, my quality of life was just not going to be there. So I would just say if I can do it with my schedule and doing everything that I need to do and being on 2 boards, and I think anybody can do it. And it's just putting your mind to it. It's just knowing that, it's maybe not for today, but it's for the tomorrows, that you're just going to make yourself better and you're going to make yourself have a better quality of life.
I love that. I cannot think of a better way to actually stop. So I'm going to leave it to you, listeners. You heard it right from her, and you've heard the results and the numbers. And for anybody who wants a little review, those will be in the show notes for you as well. And I'll put a link to AlgaCal and to a prior podcast episode that I did on AlgaCal and a little bit more support about bone density if you yourself have been diagnosed either with osteopenia or osteoporosis, or you wonder about it. And here's the truth: if you have, don't panic. That it's probably true. Many of us do have it. We simply haven't had the test to define that we've got it. And you don't want to stop living. In fact, you want to get more active and more aggressive about what it is you're doing and be conscious about what things matter the most. So, what are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today.